Yeah, we're live.
Hi everyone, I'm Margaret Schaus.
Hello, I'm Brandon Tessers. Welcome to the This Is Not Therapy Hour. Margaret and I are both licensed therapists, but this is not therapy for very, very many reasons. This is just an open conversation. Margaret and I are here talking with one another and with all of you. We're doing our best to make our guesses about who you are and what you're interested in and what you're hearing from us and how we're impacting you. For those of you who are willing and able to participate in the chat, we appreciate that because it gives us a lot more information on which to base our guesses about who you are and what you're interested in and how we're impacting you. We work with sorry, I'm just seeing that there's something under that chair over there. It's distracting me. Somebody's water bottle. We work with a private therapy practice called Effective Artistry. Our office is in Northbrook, Illinois. We do individual, couples, family, and group therapy with individuals, with people in the states of Illinois and Wisconsin. We also work with a few coaches who can work with people all over the world via the internet. All of our coaches are executive functioning coaches, but they each have their own individual specialties as well. Parenting coaching, business coaching, creativity coaching. We do our best to read out all the comments that come in because we're streaming on 3 different sites simultaneously, and you'll only see the chat comments from the site that you are watching us through. So Twitch or Facebook or YouTube. So we try to read those out so that everybody's on the same page.
You got it all.
That's basically, okay.
That's impressive.
We are also still in the process of rearranging things and moving things. So obviously today is a different setup than it was last week.
I will say I really do like this setup.
Yeah.
A lot better than last time.
Oh, for sure. Sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
There's still plenty to figure out. Like it seems like the camera is adjusting for the lighting of like what's outside the windows behind us. I'm trying to see if I can get it to autofocus on us. So we're kind of like in the shadows to some extent. So there's work to do to figure out. So apologies for as we're getting it figured out still, because it looks like I'm pretty in shadow.
Yeah. A floating head.
But we'll make do for today, and we'll try and improve it for next week and every week.
Oh.
How you doing?
I'm doing well today. Yeah, I'm doing good. I have a busy day, which I used to normally on Mondays not like it as busy, but I don't know. I feel like it's switched to now. I like when it gets busy starting Monday, and then as it leads into the week, it gets a bit slower, so that's been good. Doing good. Wish I had more to add about that. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I traveled over the weekend. My grandmother passed away a few months ago, and we just had her a couple months ago, and we just had her celebration of life over the weekend. Unfortunately, my wife and kids weren't able to come with me, so it was just me, but it was nice to be there for that and see everyone and share stories. And traveling is always, traveling is such an interesting thing to me because certainly going is a thing, being there's a thing, but coming back is a thing too. And I feel differently. I'm thinking about different things, just shaking up routines or whatever. But I'm good. But yes, a lot to do.
Yeah.
And having shifted enough, you can see me looking around. Having shifted enough about this office, but there's still plenty to do, makes it just so apparent how much there is to do, and it's hard for me to not be like, where am I going to put that? Where do I put that?
Is it more over like knowing you have a bunch of things to do? Is it more overwhelming, or is it overwhelming because you were on a trip and then you come back? Or do I have all of this stuff to do?
No, actually, usually after I travel, when I get back, I'm much more like, oh, all these things that I've been struggling to get done. Let's just tackle everything.
Right.
So some of it is the fact that it's December. And so both for business purposes, the end of the year, there's a lot of stuff to do. And personally, there's Christmas shopping, and my family and I were going to be spending Christmas out in Wisconsin. So we're traveling, so we got to get everything done for that trip, and just a lot.
Yeah.
But nothing terrible or onerous, just a lot of things to track.
No, I mean, I didn't do any traveling this weekend, but I've been trying to, I guess what you said of traveling, being in a different place, and then coming here and being like, okay, I have things to do. Normally I used to jam pack my weekend with like a bunch of stuff. And I was also starting to get a little, I guess, anxious about like, oh my God, Christmas is in 10 days. And I realized this is what started yesterday. I realized that I'd ordered some gifts for people on Amazon, and for whatever reason, they all got canceled. Weird, right? I don't know. I checked my card and everything. So I was like, oh my God, it's all canceled. And so my fiance and I, we helped with whatever. But even just reading that, like I was getting so overwhelmed, and I normally love wrapping gifts and doing all of that, but then it just like set me back. But I really just like relaxed this weekend and just hung around, watched TV, watched movies. I normally feel like that's not quote unquote productive, but fought through that. And then today I woke up and I was like, okay, I have stuff to do. Like it was a lot easier going through, like starting Monday, giving myself time to just like relax.
Nice.
Oh.
Don't remind me. That's what
You can read that?
Yeah.
Something, oh no.
Here, I'll make it even bigger. Can you read it that?
No,
Still?
not really.
All right, then I
That's
don't
so
think I can
sad.
make it bigger than that, so I'm going to put it back down
Something's
since I
wrong.
can.
It's okay.
Well, it might be the lighting too.
We'll blame it on that. I notice my eyesight is getting progressively worse. That's another thing. But yeah, stress with the holidays, I guess. I feel like as I get older, I don't find it as joyful and as relaxing having to do all of these things, but I've been trying to make it fun. Like I guess like planning, like wrapping gifts. I'm like, okay, I'm going to, make some hot chocolate and put a movie on in the background and not have it feel like a chore, which is where it tends to lead to.
Yeah.
Read it.
I ordered something that included most of my Christmas gifts for family, and the package was supposed to have been delivered on Saturday. No idea where it ended up. Hoping maintenance will contact me today. Oof.
That's frustrating.
Yeah.
Was that the other comment too? You read both of them?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, that is stressful.
Yeah, that sucks. Honestly, like, I hear what you're saying, and I think that's a good idea generally, right? Like, if there's stuff that you got to do that's like kind of tedious, or you're like to be able to set it up as much as possible to be able to do it in a situation in which you're entertained. Like whenever I'm folding laundry, I'm watching a show while I fold laundry, or even just like commuting. People generally you're on the phone with somebody, or you're listening to an audiobook or a podcast or music or something. So there's that.
Yeah.
Although, okay.
Oh, I was just saying, it just reminded me of something when you said music. I find this is so weird. I used to be embarrassed saying this, but it's not embarrassing because it's helpful. I listen, like I'll find like a few good songs that I really like, and I will make sure that I listen to them on my way to work, like in the same order. And I don't know, at first I was like, why is it's so like repetition? But I have noticed, at least for me, like music has always been a big shifter of my mood and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So when I used to I would just shuffle my music, and then I would realize like when certain songs were playing, I'd be getting more anxious or more like annoyed or sad. So I have like 4 or 5 songs that are on the top of my thing that I just like listen to. I've been trying to, I guess, be more conscientious of like what I choose to listen to on my way to work. But it's been really helpful, actually, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I know that there's like research about this stuff, but I'm not familiar with it, so I can't reference what the research finds. So I'm just talking like anecdotally and logically and whatever. But yeah, music does seem to have more of an impact on, like if you watch a movie, right, there's a reason that they use the score the way that they do. Music seems to speak to like emotion or mood in a way that is very impactful. And yeah, it's an exercise I've done with people in the past to use music like playlists as transition.
Yeah.
To like make yourself a playlist that starts where you're, like I want a playlist to listen to when I'm getting ready to go to work in the morning or whatever. Then you design a playlist where like the first song really matches where you're at in the beginning of like kind of slowly waking up or whatever. And by the end of it, the last song is like, yeah, I'm really into like that work mood.
Right.
Ready to hit the ground running kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you can experiment with like adding songs or taking them out to to get the timing right to match like the routine that you're going through. But also I've done it with people of like, if you want to do a playlist that's like, okay, I'm really bored or sad or like just feel like there's no point to anything. Let's make a playlist that starts with that and ends up where would you want to get yourself to end up. So you have these tools to kind of like.
I used to think, how do I say this? Like, I've been very particular, like not even just with music, but just like even certain teas I drink in the morning or certain foods. And I used to be like, oh God, like this is so like, I don't know, like so extra. Like, why do I have to go through all of this? But like, proof is in the pudding, my friend. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
I can't believe I used that saying. Never thought I would. But like, I don't know, one of the songs, I can't remember the title right now, but there's a song that I listen to on my way to work that it's a cover of a song that I listen to a bunch. So for me, it's like a little bit of nostalgia, but it's also like a more like upbeat version of like a slower song. And I just freaking love it. Like, I don't know, I added it to my playlist list like last week and I found it and it has just been such a nice thing in the morning. I don't know, just little things like that. I do gotta, what you said though, I do gotta get better with like, I want to start making playlists for like, not just, I have one for on my way to work and on my way back, but like for when I'm feeling more sad or for when I'm feeling like more anxious.
Well, I think, again, totally anecdotal, just me and people I'm talking to, but I think people generally make playlists either as like just songs I like, putting them on a playlist, or songs that like match a mood or an activity. You know, you've got your running playlist or workout playlist or whatever. And that's why I like to talk about it as like transition. I mean, not that that's good too, right? If I'm doing a workout that's 60 minutes, having a 60-minute long playlist, it was great. But I like having it as a way to transition, not just to kind of keep you in a mode, but help shift from one to another. So make a playlist, because otherwise people will do that where they like have a sad playlist that when I'm sad, I listen to this playlist. Yeah. And sometimes that's fine. Sometimes you want to be able to just be sad for a little while. But sometimes you want to shift from being sad into getting moving or whatever, right. And then having that transition playlist. Hold on, just
oh, that just made like a really weird noise.
Oh, weird.
Anyways.
Wait, I missed some. I have a "Why the F Do I Get Up" playlist that is upbeat but won't get on my nerves in the morning. Censored cursing, and a censored cursing work mood playlist that keeps frustrated rage momentum going when I need to harness it to desperately get things done.
I like that.
I do too, although I think we were talking about this last week, right? Wasn't this on the stream? We were talking about Vim. Yeah. But like, I like to reframe that as like, as opposed to frustrated rage, that it's like that Vim, that energy and desire, you know, being shaped in the way of like getting moving on things. But yeah.
Was there another comment?
No.
Oh, I thought you were looking at it.
No, there was something I was going to say before that I forgot, and it doesn't matter.
Music transitions.
Oh, you were talking about routines in the morning and saying it feels so extra. And a feel-good playlist that has songs I will always enjoy no matter the mood I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big one of that.
Right. And that's like often a like cheer myself up playlist too. Like I'm sad, I don't want to be sad. And I think that's great. I like to practice transitions, you know, going from point A to point B instead of just I'm at point A, here's point B, and it pulls me towards it kind of thing. I know it's a little silly. It's not something I would recommend like everybody make a million different playlists, but if somebody's dealing with a specific thing or whatever, and it's worth designing something for that, like happens enough. Wow, live and learn. My lifelong vim and vigor has been rage. I would say the other way around, that often what I'm calling vim gets interpreted as anger rather than
just expelling energy, right? Like that, like buzzing.
Right. That like that. I want to move. I want to use my body. I want to push myself to the limits of my ability to like use my muscles or my voice. You know, certainly there is. I call it vimful. You know, in my mind, I don't usually use this language out loud. You can be vimful and angry, and sometimes anger is what like gets you into that state. But you can be vimful without being angry too. oh no, I think this is different. This is rage buildup from not doing a thing I need to do for so long. And once I hit a critical conjunction of deadline approaching and accumulated rage, I can put it on the playlist to harness it. Actually, I hear what you're saying, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. And then I understand from Coach Fritz. That's exactly what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about Vim is like, so what you're saying there's two variables you're identifying as like impacting you getting moving on a task that you haven't been moving on, but have known that it's something that you, one is the approaching deadline. And we've talked about this some, we could talk about it again or talk about it more, that generally speaking, tasks which have deadlines are best done as close to the deadline as possible without being too late, which obviously that's a critical piece, right? That if you start too late and miss a deadline, that's a problem. But generally speaking, tasks with deadlines associated are best to do as close to the deadline as you can do it without it being a problem.
I want to bring something. So with me, that's very true. With a big procrastinator that has a negative sound to it, but I've always been like 24 hours before, like at school, like a deadline's due, I would do it. But I feel like from like a generalizing standpoint or like an average, why is that? Like I still don't know why that's better to do it closer to the deadline.
This is actually, so this is what happens is people think about it as an individual characteristic or the result of like a personality trait or a characteristic. People are procrastinators or whatever. And I am, again, generally speaking, and talking about tasks with deadlines. So a deadline is the point at which if a task is not accomplished, some problem occurs.
Right.
Or, and sometimes that problem is like a binary, if you miss that deadline, it's done. You can't apply for the thing or whatever. Sometimes it's once the deadline hits, there's a problem that worsens as you move further and further from it. You lose 10 points off an assignment the next day, but 20 points if it's another, and so on. So again, generally speaking, tasks with deadlines are things that other people have asked or assigned to us to do. And generally speaking, tasks that have been assigned to us to do are not tasks that are best done as early in advance as possible. In part because one general thing is that it's not a task that we inherently want to do or enjoy doing. It's not a task that's valuable in and of itself. It's only valuable in the effect that it has once it's completed.
Sure.
So if there's a deadline associated with a task, that's usually the case. And as long as it's completed by the deadline, it has all the value that it has. So there isn't any value in starting it early, or there isn't any value in finishing it early.
Sure.
Unless we want to talk about, as people often do, like, well, but then I don't have to stress about it.
Right.
Which is a separate thing. That has nothing to do with whether or not it's more beneficial to do the task early. That's about how somebody's feeling about something, and there's lots of things we can do about that.
Okay. But what if, I don't know if you're saying the same thing, but another thing is say there's a deadline for me tomorrow for something, and I wait till today or tomorrow morning, and I still am not getting myself to do it. I guess it's the same thing as being stressed about it?
Kind of, right. And we can talk about this in larger terms, that what people are generally doing with this is they're trying to stress themselves out or make themselves scared or angry enough that they'll do a thing, which is a false correlation generally speaking. Because the other thing about tasks with deadlines is that they're future oriented. So we're not talking about something like do the dishes right now, because that is something that's in my immediate environment, has some purpose that is accomplishable or meaningful in this moment. It's something like, email so-and-so about whatever, or pay this bill or whatever. So it's intellectual. Generally, these tasks are like something where you've got to think about what to do with it.
Right.
Oftentimes, most of the time it involves writing or at least communicating with somebody or something. In which case, like, getting stressed does not help you to get it done. It makes it harder to get it done. Getting angry doesn't help you to get it done. It makes it harder to get it done. So a lot of the time what's happening is we're doing it as the deadline approaches because that is the optimal time to do it.
Right.
Our bodies, as we were talking about, right? Our bodies have built in processes that are formed partly through evolution and biology, but partly through our own experience through life, that generate these outputs. That, like, I told that story right about my son trying to jump and land on his stomach on the ground. Did I not tell that on the stream?
So,
That might have been different. there was a time that my oldest son, Miles, when he was, I don't know, maybe 4 years old, he was stepping up on our little, maybe it's like 2 feet high fireplace mantle thing and jumping off and like throwing his arms up in the air. And he did it a few times and he was like, Dad, I'm trying to jump and land like flat on the ground, but my body won't let me. So he'd keep like jumping off and trying to do it, but then immediately would like land on his feet. And I explained to him then, and use it as an example now, that like, yeah, because a lot of the time our idea of something to do would actually be harmful to us.
Right.
And so our body has built-in protections, built-in processes to override cognition sometimes. Now that doesn't mean that that's always the case. You know, if you're a stunned person or whatever, no, it actually is beneficial and better to follow in that way. And in those cases, it takes a lot of training to be able to override your body's impulses, and even more training to be able to shift it so that your body doesn't have those impulses.
Right.
What we're talking about procrastination generally is that it's your body. I should be clear. Nervous system is part of the body. So we have an idea of like, I should do this right now, but that's actually wrong. And we'll talk more about why that's generally a bad idea. And so we have processes built in based on actual lived experience that kind of override that and be like, nah, this is not the right time to do that. But because we think it's the right time, then we judge our body, and it was like, why are you doing this? Why won't you let me do it? Which is a lot like my son saying like, why won't my body let me land on my face?
Sure, but I know we're gonna get into it more, but like if I have a deadline in a week from now, but I know like 3 days, like, okay, I have a deadline a week from now, so next Monday, but I know that Saturday, Sunday, and Friday I'm gonna be really busy and I'm not able to finish it, then wouldn't I have to do it early?
Well, there's a couple comments. What I'm hearing is I need some Jedi training. Yeah. As in overriding the body and eating the kale. Yes, right. Like that's the point of cognition, is that it's important sometimes, valuable sometimes, to override. If our instincts were just always the optimal thing to do, then we wouldn't have cognition. But vice versa, if cognition was always the right thing to do, then we wouldn't have instincts. Right. Sometimes it's one, sometimes the other. And we're just doing our best to figure it out. What you're talking about is important and it's real, but it's problematic that we culturally frame that as doing it early. Because what you're talking about is not actually doing it early, right? You're saying it's not due till Monday, and it will take, for the purpose of this conversation, we're going to use time. That's what people generally do, even though there are better ways to do it that I teach people. It's going to take me 4 hours to do this thing. It's not due for 3 more days, but I have 4 hours available to do it today, and I won't have 4 hours available to do it over the next 3 days.
Yeah.
So that's not early. That's the last minute. That's as close to the deadline as you can do it.
Sure, but it's, I get what you're saying, but still, I guess it depends what people mean by early, because I think of before a deadline.
Well, if all we mean is like before it's due, then yeah, obviously, generally speaking, it's going to be optimal to do the thing before the deadline. By definition, right? Once the deadline hits, a problem occurs. So it's always better to do it before the deadline. It's just optimal, again, generally optimal to do it as close to the deadline as you can.
Okay.
And there are all kinds of things like what you're talking about, or like, I'll start the task and then find out I think it's going to be simple, but then as soon as I start it, it turns out it's more complicated, and now I don't have enough time to finish it. All kinds of things like that. Or like, I plan on having this time and I start it, but then something comes up and I get interrupted, and so then I miss it. All of those, they're very real, but all of these things are things about modifying when is the last point at which I can start and still get it done.
Right, that makes sense.
Where talking about doing it early is a simpler way to say this is, are we talking about finishing the task early or starting the task early? And generally, finishing the task early is not the optimal way to go.
Okay.
So this idea of like, well, if I get it done earlier, then I won't stress about it, is almost never true, because you'll still keep working on it until the deadline.
Oh, so even if like you finish something, like let's say something's due next Monday, but you finish it that Wednesday, even if it's done, you think you're still going to be stressing about it?
Quite often, yes. So I'm using all these like weasel words here because some deadline things, like I mentioned, paying bills earlier, right? Paying a bill is a deadline thing. And that is a thing where, if you do it early, you're done with it early.
Right.
But so that's why I'm not always talking about starting early versus ending early, because this conversation mostly applies to things where like thinking
Mhm.
is involved, a lot of ideation is involved, coming up with an idea, finding the optimal solution. You know, like, I want you to source out this for me, you know, find me the best whatever to get. Like, there's at least always theoretically more work that I could do to find more.
Right.
Or writing this paper or sending that email or creating this presentation.
Mhm.
Yeah, if I'm finished with that a week before it's the deadline,
Mhm.
then it's very unlikely that my mind will actually not pay attention to it anymore in the remaining week.
Fair, but then if you do send it in like a day before the deadline and send it in, I feel like until, like, if it's a paper for school, right? I feel like, at least for me, until I get that grade, I'm still gonna be like, oh my god, I should have done this, I should have done that. Like, there's still more stress.
Well, again, now we're talking now about like how a person feels about it, which is real and that happens and it's worth talking about. But that's separate from, in material terms, like, when is the optimal time to do the task? So leaving people's feelings out of it for now, because that's a different thing and it has different solutions. That's what these systems basically are designed around, right? It's like the optimal time to do something.
Yeah.
Like we all know, well, you were talking about morning routines. We were thinking about that, right? There are certain things that, like, doing it in the morning is a great time to do it, and doing it at another time in the day is not a great time to do it, or whatever. And so in those cases, we want to do it in the morning. There are other things where it's optimal to do it at night or in the middle of the day or whatever. Now, if for whatever reason we come to a conclusion of like, no, this thing which intrinsically, what's something that's got like an intrinsic advantage to do it in the morning?
But like, for me personally,
Sure.
I mean, working out.
Okay, so working out in the morning, there is an intrinsic advantage to doing it in the morning, in our culture especially, because working out generally is like makes you sweaty and stuff. And so if you do it in the morning, then you're able to like shower and get dressed and ready for your day much more efficiently. It's a lot easier than if you do it like in the middle of the day. And I know some people do that, but it's easier to go from waking up, getting into your PJs and whatever, then getting ready for the workday, then get ready for the workday, then go on lunch, switch into gym stuff and shower, get back to the workday. So there's that inherent.
Right.
Inherent means like for the thing itself, not because of what I or a person is thinking or feeling about it. It's just a part of the thing itself. I would also suggest that there's other inherent things about morning routines generally, like the process of setting ourselves up for the day, but we'll leave that aside for now. So that's inherent. If someone were to come to the conclusion that like, no, the leaving other reasons out of it, they're like, no, the optimal time is to do it at 3 p.m. We're doing a hypothetical where we're not paying attention to like, obviously people's schedules and bodies are different and things, right? So in this hypothetical, it is inherently optimal for the person to do it first thing in the morning. They decide for whatever reason, they come to the conclusion that like doing it at 3 p.m. is the best.
Yeah.
They're going to have a much harder time getting themselves to do it at 3 p.m. than they would if they were trying to do it in the morning. Because they're working against inherent problems, not just my ideas or attitude.
But I think inherent is also subjective.
Inherent, you mean like opinion based? You know, like people can disagree. So we can disagree in our assessments of the benefits of these inherent things or not, but an inherent trait exists in theory, right? Like something which is inherent is there whether you and I agree on it or not.
Yeah.
Right? Like inherent to the structure of this chair, regardless, that's what inherent means. It's like regardless of what you and I think about it, just based on it itself and what it is, it can support the weight of whatever, you know, however many hundreds or thousands of pounds without collapsing. I might think that it can't support that much, or I might think it can support more than that, but that's just about our ability to determine what's accurate.
I get that, but that's how I say this. Like that example with the chair, I feel like is a lot different than working out being an inherent thing.
Well, that's why I tried to focus on like one element that we can identify that is inherent. Like it is, again, different people and different schedules, blah, blah, blah. But assuming the schedule that you have or like that most people tend to have in our culture, it does save time. It is more efficient to go from, you know, waking up in the morning to getting into your workout stuff and working out and then transitioning into the day, as opposed to transitioning into the day, then back into the work and stuff, and then the day again. That's an inherent thing. So if I do it in the middle of my day, I'm transitioning into my day clothes and day whatever twice.
Okay, that makes sense.
Where if I do it in the morning, I'm only doing it once. So that's an inherent quality. Like, my opinion, your opinion doesn't change the fact that I would be getting dressed for the day twice instead of once.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that's not necessarily like a huge factor in something like this, but that's just the example that we were using. What a task about like setting up, what about a task like setting up speaking engagements and putting it off? Sometimes quality of the output dictates the when. Working out later supports a higher quality workout. Okay. I don't want to get too into the details of a workout specifically, because that might be true with any given task, right? There are inherent qualities and there are trade-offs and whatever. Let's take eating as an example, right? And we're going to use some exaggerated things to try and make this point, because I know the point I'm making is so counter to what everybody's used to. This is why we have to do so much work to get away from the idea that, like, well, how motivated I am or am not is what dictates what I do. Nobody then asks, like, why is a person motivated or not, except to talk about psychology and or deficits. But, like, you know what, let's do a different one. Let's talk about finances, because this is like
exciting.
This is easier. That in most people's life, like day-to-day life, the inherent value of paying your bills at the last minute is very small. It exists, but it's like so small that it's negligible. The inherent value of paying your debts at the last moment is that you retain access to that money in the meantime. And then you can therefore use that money to generate more money. Obviously, you can use it for lots of things, but for this, we're just going to focus on that. So the very basics is, like, your bank account gives you probably basically nothing in interest, 0.03% interest or whatever. So for you and me, putting off paying a $100 bill for a month, results in we made 0.000 something cents of interest, and it's not really worth, because there's other value to doing it early or whatever.
Right.
But if I'm running a large corporation where our debts are billions of dollars, then the difference between, and plus there's other ways to invest that money with higher returns and stuff where I'm getting 5% return instead. The difference between paying $1 billion debt a week later is that week additional of 5% return, and that turns into $50,000 or $500,000 or whatever the math, I guess. Now I'm going to do it for real. 5% return on 1 billion would be. Don't ask
me.
5 million? No, 50 million. 50 million. Now, 5% return in a week is not like necessarily a realistic thing, but $50 million. This is part of the reason that, for example, like escrow accounts exist, or the reason that banks pay you interest is because the way that banks make money is that when you store your money with them, they're using that money. They're investing it partly in like giving loans. You get the bank that you store your money in, they use that money to loan somebody, maybe even you yourself, for a mortgage. And they collect back on those loans or on their investments. They make money. In order to make more investments, they need more money to be able to do that.
Right.
So the more money that people store with us, the more we can make investments and make more money. So we then provide incentive to people to store their money with us instead of with other people. And one of those things has been an interest rate. Give us some of your money and we'll give you some of the interest that we make off it, basically. So in real life, for you and me, the return on that is small enough that like I would rather just like get the bill paid, because paying a bill is something that once I'm done with it, I don't have to worry about it until the next time it's due. And so it's not worth the 0.0002 cents or whatever that I would make by putting it off and having to remember it again later. I'll just take care of it right now. But that is still an inherent benefit of paying your debts at the last moment possible.
Yeah.
Now, there's risk, right? And that's a lot of what we're talking about, that if I don't do it now when I could, there's always the risk that something might happen between now and the time that it would be optimal to do it later that will take away from me the ability to get it done then. And then we factor that in. We change the risk, the inherent benefits, blah, blah, blah. And all this stuff is very, very complicated. Eating cake should never be put off.
What is it?
Eating cake should never be put off.
I agree.
And with anything that's very complicated and very difficult to intellectually do all the analysis, well, our bodies come built in, our nervous system, our bodies have built-in processes that evaluate these things. Are they flawless? Of course not. But these factors are all being taken into account in the output then, and the output being like the intention or the execution of doing the thing. So we're going to take it away from a specific task now and just say, here's task X. And for inherent reasons, the optimal time for me to do task X is at 4 p.m. But I have inaccurately identified that it's the best time for me to do it is at 10 a.m. Can I make myself do it? Yes. But it will be much harder to do it at 10 a.m. than it will be at 4 p.m. So it's already less efficient. On top of that, I also have to spend resources to get myself to do it, to override my impulses and initiate on it at 10 a.m. Instead of it happening much more easily or getting started on it, sometimes even automatically at 4 p.m. So I'm doing it less efficiently or taking some benefit away from waiting until later and spending more resources to get myself going on it.
Okay.
Again, this is a hypothetical where we're assuming that I am inaccurate, right? It's hard to actually know in real life. But let's play this out. What if I have a bunch of tasks over the course of my life that are assigned to me that are due at a deadline, and it is inherently optimal to do those things as close to the deadline as possible. But for some reason, I believe that it is actually best to do it as early as possible instead. That means that the act of doing it, I will miss out on benefits that would come if I waited, and we can talk about some of those things. And it will be inefficient. So either more costly or less valuable or both. And on top of that, I'm also spending resources in getting myself to override my body's impulses. I'm going to remind everyone again, the nervous system is a part of the body. Emotions are things that your body generates. Even thoughts are generated. The thought itself is not a body thing, but is generated by some process that involves the body somehow. So now imagine a scenario that most people have experienced where like, you've got to go do something. You've got to go into a dark room or into a basement or whatever to get something, and you're scared. And you identify it as an irrational fear, right? Like, I'm worried that something's going to jump out at me, but I know that's just my laundry room and there's nothing in there. You can make yourself do it. But the more scared you are, the more effortful it is to make yourself do that thing. Right? Does that make sense?
No, it does. I have a question, but I'm waiting because I'm here to answer it though. So with that example though, I do think it would be beneficial to just do it right away.
With that example?
Yeah. Okay.
Because that example, we're talking about one where the impulse we can identify in this hypothetical, it is inaccurate. Right? If we did a different thing where it's like, there's an alley that you're about to walk down to save time on your, cuts time off of your trip, and you get some sense of like, I don't think it's safe to walk down that alley. Then it's not so clear cut that like, you should just do it.
Right.
It's like, well, maybe you listen to your intuition and go around. Because again, these intuitions, these emotions, these impulses, they are not, we talk about them as automatic because I am not thinking, I'm not using cognition, I'm not using conscious thought to make it happen. But they are not automatic in the sense that they would happen no matter what. These are the results of processes. We're taking in information, we're evaluating and utilizing that information, and then generating an output that we're talking about as an intuition or an emotion.
But those can also be wrong too, right?
Of course, they can be. That's the point, right? Sometimes cognition is wrong, sometimes intuition or impulse is wrong. We do our best to find the balance.
Okay, so is it just a bunch of guessing and checking then with a bunch of different situations to see which ones override the other?
In reality, that's what life is, right? All of us are doing all the time. this is not like advice I can give. This is just how it works to be a human. Is a lot of things we're just doing by impulse or reaction without thinking about it. A lot of things we're thinking about it and making conscious choices or efforts to do things. Sometimes there's things that we do without thinking about it and it goes poorly and we're like, oh, if I had thought about it, whatever. And then sometimes we think about it the next time and it changes. Sometimes we do the same thing again. Sometimes we think about something, we do it and it doesn't work out. And if I had just trusted my gut, like all of us have had experiences where like, I should have gone with my gut. I knew it. And now that we've all had experiences where like, I should have thought about this. And so yes, in practice, that's the case. Now, as far as like you said, do we just guess and check? Well, that's the automatic thing that's happening. We are going to act based on conscious thought or based on non-conscious impulse. That's all actions. So we learn things by doing stuff. Another way we can use cognition to some extent. This is where we use like logic and research and things like that, where we can come to conclusions about the thing separate from our previous thoughts, our existing thoughts, or our existing feelings about it.
Can you use like an example?
So that's what I'm talking about here, is where someone is saying like, no, I should do it earlier because then I don't have to worry about it. That is basing it on like, what are my current thoughts and feelings about things, not using logic to evaluate the thing itself as what would be optimal. Pretend that the way I feel about it right now doesn't matter or it's changeable or whatever. Just evaluating the thing in and of itself. So that's the conversation we're having right now. And it's difficult. We can only do things, we can only do so much with that. So like very few things do we manage in that way. But yeah, this is one of those things where we can talk more about the inherent benefit of doing things at the last minute. And then we work on like getting ourselves to do it that way, even though at this point now, your impulse is to think that I should do it earlier.
But that could be right.
It could be. You mean like in a specific individual case? It is true that
in general,
there are times where my evaluation of like when is the last moment to start it is wrong. That's true. But we're ignoring that for now and saying, pretend, this is a logic thing, right? Pretend that we can identify accurately the last point at which you can start it and get it done anyway without a problem. That's what we're talking about. And that, again, generally is the optimal point at which to do tasks that have deadlines associated with them. Not always, but usually.
Okay, that makes sense.
One of those things is humans are finite. We only have so many resources. We can only do so many things. And generally speaking, tasks which have been assigned to us, tasks which have deadlines and have usually been assigned to us, are generally not things that we enjoy doing or that the experience of doing has an inherent benefit to it itself. So silly example, exaggerated example, but to make the point of how our bodies is that you can always die, right? Like, let's say I've got a big research paper or I need to finish this report for my boss and it's due 3 weeks from today. Well, if I die 2 weeks and 6 days from today, the day before it's due, and you could ask me at that point, I've died now, and you can say like, hey, you spent you spent X number of time, 10 hours over the last 2 weeks doing this project. Do you wish you could go back and do other things with that time instead?
Well, yeah.
Right. So that is one of the inherent reasons that it's optimal to do it at the last minute is because the point of doing it is to meet the deadline. Now that's an exaggerated example, but here's a more common one that does sometimes happen, is that your boss comes to you and says, hey, you know what, actually, we don't need that report. Wouldn't you rather had not spent your time doing it?
Yeah, that's true.
Or an even more common version is that your boss comes to you and says, you know what, I want to change how you're doing that report. I want you to focus on this part instead. Are you then glad that you didn't focus so much time on doing it the way that you had already understood it?
Yeah.
So the longer we wait, the more information we have.
Okay.
That's one of the inherent benefits on doing things at the last minute, especially again, things with deadlines. I'm not trying to say everything should be done at the last minute. That's not true. We're talking about.
But you're saying like the last I always get confused when you think last minute. I think like, okay, like a few hours before, but you mean like.
Last minute means the last point at which you can start it and still complete it
before the deadline.
Optimally before the deadline. Not like you can do a half-assed bad version of
Okay.
it 10 minutes before, but like the last point at which you can start it and do the optimal version of it
Okay.
before the deadline. Lies. I have specifically been informed that I am infinite. I mean, that's funny. And unfortunately, in our culture, that is what people are told. We don't say it in that way, but we do say you can accomplish anything you put your mind to. Or more common versions are, you're just not doing that because you're lazy.
Well, I hear a lot of things too of like, oh, you just need to like, I have heard about energy being infinite. Maybe not in that word, but then being like, oh, like, if you're exhausted, just do something to give you energy, and then you'll be able to like finish everything.
Yeah, or if you just want it enough, or if you just think about it the right way, you'll get energized. We tend to focus on psychology. So when it comes to cognition, our culture does teach that you are infinite, that like you're in charge, you're in control of what you feel and what you think and what you want. And if you just want something enough, you'll do it. And if you're not doing something, it's because you don't want it enough.
Right.
That belief is one of the things that leads to this problem that we're talking about, where I feel bad until I get it done. Because if it is true that by wanting it enough, I get it done, and if I don't get it done, that means I don't want it enough.
Right.
Well, here's the thing that I think is important, and I want to get it done, and I've not gotten it done. So what should I do is want it more. And the more that I want something, that the worse I feel if it doesn't happen.
Right.
So by just trying to increase how much I want to get this done, all I'm really doing is making myself feel worse and worse until it's done. And everybody knows that. They know, they'll say like, I just get more and more stressed until I get it done. Once I get stressed enough or angry enough or whatever, then I get it done. That is a false correlation for intellectually oriented tasks. It can be true. It is true. Our bodies have this system because it is helpful with physical tasks to like shift away from thought and into just doing stuff.
Right.
That doesn't have to feel emotionally bad, but it can. Those, feeling stressed and guilty can accompany actually like shifting into adrenaline and getting things done.
I feel like this is going to open something, totally open up things that I want to have more time on. But why is it then like if you want to, like if you know you want to do something, and I know, like inherently I know that like me constantly thinking about it doesn't make me want to do it, but why?
That's the result of wanting to do it. If you're thinking about something a lot, that means that you do want to do it.
But then why? Sorry, this is like blinding me. We need to figure this out next
we'll
time.
work on it.
Like leaning far back, so it's like in my eye. Try and use an example that I think would be like helpful for me to understand it. Like, I don't know, I really want to do more things with art. I want to be more creative. We'll use that. And I know that like that'll make me feel better and all of that stuff. But then I don't understand, the more you keep thinking about it, then knowing that why I should do this, it makes you not want to do it. But then I feel like if I don't think about it enough, it's just, I'm going to forget it.
Okay. So regardless of the specific example, you don't actually know that it will make you feel better. You believe that it will. You might even believe that accurately. It might be true that it does have that effect if and when you do it. That's different from knowing it. And we should be suspicious of our own conclusions about the future, right?
Okay.
It's not to not have them. Of course, we are all going to come up with ideas of like, this is a good thing to do or that's a bad thing to do. And we are more confident, like, no, I am very confident this will help me or whatever. But we want to make a distinction between how confident you are in your belief or prediction versus knowing something. Because otherwise we get into this whole other thing where if it ever turns out that you're wrong, it causes all kinds of problems. Like I shouldn't trust any of my predictions instead of like I'm more confident in some than in others, but even the ones I'm most confident in could be wrong. It also leads to this problem that we're talking about right now is if I know that I will feel better, but I'm not acting as though that's the case, then I'm like, what's the problem with how I'm acting? Where sometimes, at least what's happening is that I'm wrong. My belief that I will feel better is wrong. And that's why I'm acting as though it isn't true, is because it isn't true.
Sure.
One of the reasons, especially when related to something like this, doing my art or whatever, is because people are looking at the value and not the cost. If I do my art, when I do my art, I feel good. I believe that. But like, does that mean that if you haven't slept in 48 hours, doing your art right now would feel good? Like, no, it wouldn't.
Right.
So that's an extreme example, but there's doing my art will make me feel good given that the like resources available to me cover the cost of doing it. But pushing myself to do it when I can't afford to do it wouldn't make me feel good. It would
Right.
make me feel worse.
Okay.
But people will still say, I know if I just do it, I'd feel good. And they're wrong because they can't afford it. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense.
Think of it as like, I know if I go on a vacation, I'll be so relaxed. As a general statement, cool. Well, what if you have no money and you just lost your job, and in order to go on that vacation, you have to take out a loan, and every dollar that you spend is like additional money? Like, is that going to be as relaxing?
Okay, no, I get that, but I think or even if I know I have, or I believe to think I know I have the resources and I'm able to.
And we're just wrong about that a lot of the time.
So then if you're ever going to want to try something, how do I say this? Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm getting lost in the sauce right now.
Well, if you're getting to like, how do I get myself to do things? We're moving away from deadlines and the specifics there. You're just talking about like, how do I get myself to do stuff that I think would be beneficial? Then depending on the specifics of any given thing, there's all kinds of stuff we could talk about. The best like general thing I can say is we're talking about situations in which we have consciously identified, we've used conscious thought to identify that something would be worth doing. We've consciously identified that even accounts for how much it costs, which first of all, most people don't do that part. But let's say, no, I have thought about how much it costs accurately and accurately what it's worth, and it is worth it. And I have accurately even identified, again, totally theoretical, can't know this in real life, but in this, I've accurately identified that I can also afford it. All that stuff is true.
Okay.
Right? Then it's still also true that cost fluctuates depending on things.
Sure.
Right? One of those things, for example, is the time of day. That some tasks are more difficult to do when there's not sunlight. And so the cost of doing it goes up. Sometimes that fluctuation takes it above the value or below and whatever. But also the resources available to me go up and down. And depending on the task, it's still optimal to do it at times that it's most efficiently done.
Yeah.
I do tend to think when it comes to like making art, working on my art, generally, that's something that is best done like late at night. Artists, there's a reason that there's correlations and stereotypes about like artists staying up very late, working into the night and whatever. That's not across the board, but well, then if I have a job and I know that like I'm gonna have to wake up at 7 a.m. or whatever, then now all of a sudden things have shifted and I'm not gonna stay up until 3. That doesn't mean that it's now optimal to do it at 7 instead of 3 in a general sense. It's still gonna cost me more to do it at 7 than to do it at 3, but the 3 o'clock option is not available to me. If I'm then like, I don't do my art as much as I used to, well, you're doing your art in a way that's more costly to you than it used to be, even if your resources haven't gone down. But most likely, if you made that shift, your resources you do have fewer resources available to you. You're working during the day and various other things. You're also not sleeping on your optimal body schedule, which is a research-based, like night owl, early bird thing. That's real. There are biological things that correlate to people who like rest more efficiently when they rest later, when they sleep later than others. Anyway, in practical terms, the thing to do is to set an intention. Meaning like, here's this thing I want to do. I want to do my art more. Sometimes planning is a helpful thing to do, but with what we're talking about right now, planning ruins it. Setting an intention of, I'm going to do my art. I am going to make art. That's a good thing to do, because then like as you navigate your day, right, your body, your non-conscious processes, picking up all this information and calculating it all in. If I have set my intention is I'm going to do art, part of what's being calculated in is like when and how can I afford to do it, and my impulses will go in that direction, at least are more likely to go in that direction. If, however, instead I say, so I'm going to do it at 7 o'clock tonight. Now it might work out. I might get lucky that that's like an optimal time and my impulses just go that way. And it is more likely that my impulses go that way if I set the intention of doing it at 7. That's more likely to happen. But it's not guaranteed. And if it doesn't happen, now I'm either in a place where I'm overriding impulses and making myself do it, which We identify it as costly.
Right.
And especially because these patterns tend to happen with, I'm going to do stuff at night after I'm done with work and other obligations. A lot of the time we're just out of resources by then.
Right.
Or I don't override my impulses and don't do it. But since I made a plan, because of the nature of what I mean and think about plans, I now feel bad
Right.
about the fact that I failed that plan.
Right. So being like more specific in that regard is just, it's better to be more general than with the intention.
Again, it
overall.
depends on the thing. So
With this
some things you want to be like, I'm just setting intention, I'm going to do it. And I trust that as long as I keep that intention, keep reminding myself, whatever, I trust that that's being worked in and my impulses will go in that direction.
Right.
Some things, no, we do, you know, especially when you're coordinating with other people, like deadlines, it does become important that like, no, it's got to be done by this point.
Right.
Although a lot of the time that then kicks in. I want to say, because we got to wrap up soon, and I know there's a bunch of things we brought up and didn't finish, but I'll say this at least. Adrenaline, people often talk about like, I get that adrenaline in my system and then I get moving. It's not just adrenaline. We use that as like a shorthand for all these changes. But the body has different modes. This is real. Talking about fight or flight, the opposite of fight or flight is rest and digest. Our bodies are adaptable. There's awake and there's asleep, right? So we shift from, we get into this mode and we get into that mode. Taking action and thinking are opposite things. The more suited we are for like, I'm moving right now and doing stuff, the less suited we are for thinking.
Right, that makes sense.
So when we're talking about adrenaline, which is actually a thing that gets released into the bloodstream, but it's not the only thing. There's a lot of stuff going on. But whenever I'm saying I've got adrenaline, my adrenaline is going, that's something that makes me better suited to taking action.
Right.
It also makes me worse suited to thinking. So when someone's like, once I get the adrenaline, then I get going on my school project. That happens, but you also do a way worse job on your school project than you would have done without the adrenaline, because it's a task that involves cognition and you're not doing cognition very well.
Right. Wow. My mind's been blown for a second. I was connecting some things and yeah.
A very common thing that happens with people. Think about having a conversation with your significant other about something contentious, right? Like they want something differently than you want it, and the two of you need to navigate this thing. Now think of a time when you've got adrenaline in your system and you're having that conversation, or a time when like, no, you are perfectly calm and having that conversation, in which case is it likely to go better? So a lot of this stuff generally, rise and grind culture, the 8-hour work, a lot of stuff in our culture is there are things that do make sense to do for physically oriented, tedious tasks where like you don't really need to think about it. You just got to do it over and over. You just got to lay the next brick and the next brick and the next brick and whatever. But the way our body is oriented to be well suited for that is the opposite of the stuff that's well suited for thinking.
Right.
And at this point, mostly when we're talking about procrastination, we're mostly talking about the task that the person is talking about procrastinating is a cognitively oriented task. Not always, but especially when there's a deadline involved, it's almost always a cognitive task. And so like as that stress builds, it actually makes it harder for us to do it, not easier. We still do it anyway because the deadline is there.
Right.
That's why we're doing it, because now I've lost, like in trying to get myself to do it by getting more stressed, I've made myself worse at doing it. Plus I'm spending resources to be stressed. So I actually make it so that I start later. The more stressed I get, the later I'm going to start on it.
Right.
But if it's important, as the deadline approaches, I can start anyway, but not because of the stress. That made it worse. The stress is not what got you moving.
Yeah.
Now, it gets even more complicated than that, because even cognitive tasks involve physical activity. You got to like write.
Right. Yeah.
So it's really this like flipping back and forth thing, and there's stuff going. And this is why people talk about initiation as a thing. I think it's because a lot of the time it's like you need some physicality to get started. But once you get started, like reading a book involves very little physicality. Put a book in front of my face and I'll get moving reading it, right? That's just like an automatic response. But like picking up the book and opening it and putting it in my face is more physical.
Yeah.
So there is sometimes things to like getting into the physical space to like sit down, open up the thing. But then you need to be able to think.
Right.
Just last thing I swear, 'cause I know we gotta go. There's a crap ton of research. Anybody can look it up. It's not just one study. It's like tons of studies across different cultures, different times, whatever, on cognitive labor. That in a given 8-hour workday, if your job is an intellectually oriented job, how much of that time do people actually spend engaged in productive intellectual labor?
Isn't it 2.5?
Yeah, different studies have different results, anywhere from like 90 minutes to 4 hours, whatever. But compile them all together, and you're roughly looking at like 2.5 hours out of an 8-hour day. Now, I share that information with people, and generally their first response is like, oh, that's not good, or whatever. But that's kind of like people are thinking like everyone should be 12 feet tall. And then we look and it's like actually people average, being, there's exceptions, but the average falls within, like 5 feet to 6.5 feet tall or so, right? If you've decided people should be 12 feet tall, you hear that and you're like, well, that's bad.
Right.
But all it really shows is that you're wrong. Your idea of how tall it would be optimal to be, like evolution, real physical processes have determined differently. You're wrong.
Yeah.
So if you think people should work 8 hours a day in intellectual labor, understand why you think that, but you're wrong.
Yeah.
It's not a motivation issue. This is an observation. We notice this is how humans behave. By definition, that means at least in theory, the more broadly, the more statistics, the more cases you get, the more confident we can say this is the optimal way for humans to behave.
Right.
It's not that on average everybody's really lazy or whatever. Also, I say that, and what everybody thinks I mean is you should work at least 2.5 hours a day. And to be clear, I'm not saying anything about what you should work, but I am saying that's the average, not like the minimum, which is what people tend to hear. For every person who's working 5 hours in a day, someone else worked 0 hours in that day, Nobody processes that.
Yeah.
But that's intellectual labor. 8-hour workdays built on physical labor. Stress and whatever, that's based on that's helpful for physical, menial tasks, not intellectual tasks. So a lot of the mismatch in our modern culture, especially work and education culture, is applying concepts that are relevant to physicality, to cognition, that actually make it worse.
Right. Yeah.
Physical tasks, it is generally good to get it done earlier because there's a clearly defined endpoint. Once I've built this wall, the wall is built and we're done.
Right.
Where cognitive tasks, once I write this paper, how do I know exactly that it's like I could make it better? Maybe,
That's true. I know we have to get going.
We do. Thank you all.
It was nice seeing you all. I'll see you next Monday.
Yep. Good to be with you. See you next week. Thank you, Margaret.
You're welcome. What were you thanking me for?